Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in remotely to what is going to be a really important and illuminating conversation with Paz Schwartz, the director of this extraordinary film, Telling Nonie. I am Nancy Sinkoff. I think you know me. I am the academic director of the Alan and Joan Bildner Center for the Study of Jewish Life and professor of Jewish Studies and History at Rutgers, and it is really my honor always to be involved with the film festival. But I want to be very clear. The director of the film festival is Karen Small, who's been involved with it for 25 years. And our program coordinator, Sarah Portilla, is the left hand, right hand, and center woman in getting this film festival launched in all its ways, particularly this year when we have been short staffed. So I want to thank them up front, as well as Larry Freed, who's behind the scenes, Darcy Marr, who does publicity, and Robin Auerbach. I want to remind people that the Bildner Center is primarily self-supporting, and our incredible work, if I can say that, is done because of your support from the community. So please remember that. And remember that in these very challenging times. We're about to talk about an incredible film that underscores our challenging times. But the Bildner Center makes possible the public programming we do, the fact that we bring complex issues to the community, to faculty, to students, and we do it in the film festival with these extraordinary films that you would not be able to see if we did not show them. So please remember that. I am now really emphasizing how important a role the Bildner Center plays in the Rutgers community and on campus, making visible all of the complexity and richness and diversity of the Jewish experience, including the Jewish experience in modern Israel. It's very, very important. So now it is my great pleasure to introduce the woman on the screen beside me, who is Paz Schwartz, and I want to tell you a little bit about her before we get involved with our questions. So Paz Schwartz is an award-winning Israeli director, journalist, and media professional. She worked as a director of the investigative journalism program Real Time, which was considered the flagship program of the Israeli Public Broadcasting Corporation. And she was a reporter for Channel 13 News, covering a wide array of topics, including the conflict in southern Israel at the Gaza border. She, meanwhile, has also directed multiple documentary features about the Israeli army, the national security apparatus, and the Arab-Jewish conflict from a personal story perspective, including her film, Telling Nonie, which was awarded the Best Documentary Film at the Haifa International Film Festival. So we really have here on the ground an extraordinary journalist who also is personally involved with telling these stories and bringing to the public. So for those of you out in cyberspace, let me be clear, you are muted. If you have a question, type it into the chat and I will ask it of Paz Schwartz at the end of our conversation. Closed captions are available to you on your screen. Click on the captions or on the three dots to enable the captions on your screen. I'll let you know, however, that often the captions are a little bit incomplete, particularly with foreign words. It calls Nonie Oni during it. So it's not perfect. AI, unfortunately or fortunately, is going to get better and will be perfect, but right now it's not. And the talk will be recorded and will be available on the Bildner Center website in a few days. So those are the ground rules. And now I can engage Paz directly, which I'm really looking forward to. So Paz, I've seen the film several times. It's extremely emotional, vital, challenging for a whole host of reasons. So let's just start with, when did you, I assume you read Nonie's book, but perhaps not. How did you meet Nonie Darwish? How did you know of her story? And then, of course, I want to ask you more about Gezi and Nadav, but let's start with Nonie.
Well, actually, I came across this story through a very personal experience. 4 years ago, my grandmother passed away. You hear me good?
I think if I'm having a little bit trouble, but it may be my audio. So
Okay.
I'll let Sarah tell us if maybe you speak a little louder. No,
Okay.
you're saying it's good, Sarah? All good. Forget me. Go ahead.
Okay, so I came across the story through a personal experience. My grandmother passed away 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and we are a very small family. And during the week of mourning, as we went through her belongings, we suddenly found a small box with dozens of old love letters that were written to my 16 years old grandmother, who was in the Palmach. And apparently she had her first love, and all of these letters were written by a man named Yuda Cohen. And we were very curious about who this man was, my grandmother's first boyfriend. And I'm a journalist, as you know, and I decided to start looking for him. And I was determined to find him. And the only thing I knew about him is that he joined the Mossad. So I started looking for people around his age. He was he was supposed to be like 80, 90, that was in the Mossad. And actually, I just started Googling and started asking friends and doing my research. And the only one that I found that was that did like a Mossad that was with him in the Mossad was Gezi Tzafrir.
If you have a trouble with the language of Hebrew, I can probably translate it. And I think
Okay.
it's worth it to tell people actually, just to stop you for a second, Palmach and Mossad, not everyone, and Shabak, not everyone knows these acronyms. So perhaps
Okay.
just to clarify, Palmach and Mossad here. Yeah.
Okay, so Palmach is the first Israeli army before there was the state of Israel.
Yeah.
And my grandmother was 15 years old. She was in a kibbutz in the north of Israel. It was at all the letters were written at 1947, a year before the state was formed. And apparently she had her first love with a man named Yuda. And I started looking for him.
Yeah.
And all I knew that he joined the Mossad, which is the Israeli intelligence force. And that made it, for me as a journalist, it was even more intriguing. So I started looking for him, and I started looking for people about his age that were in the Mossad. And the only person that I found that joined that was about his age and alive was Gezi Tzafrir.
Oh my
So,
God.
so that's how it started. So I picked the
Amazing.
phone and I called Gezi Tzafrir and I told him, my name is Paz Schwartz. I'm a journalist, but I'm calling you in a personal matter. My grandmother died, and I want to ask you something. Can I come? He said, "Come on." And I came to his house in Ramat Sharon, and we sat, and he made tea and cookies, and I started telling him my story. I told him I have love letters of my grandmother, and that was written by a man called Yuda Cohen. Do you know him? And he said, yes, I know him. So I said, can you help me get in touch with him? He said, well, I'm going to try, but I didn't speak with him for 50 years. So I was sitting in his living room, and he gave me the tea and the cookies, and I started asking him about his life story. And he started telling me his life story. And he is a very fascinating story because he served in Lebanon and in Iran and in he's fascinating career. And before I left, I asked him from all of your in life career, is there one story that you still think about? And he said, just wait a second. And then he went slowly to his bedroom and he came out with a book. Now They Call Me Infidel. The book was written, the book was named Now They Call Me Infidel. And he told me this book was written by a woman named Nonie Delwish. When I was 22, he said, I was involved in the assassination of her father. And I wrote her an email, and we are corresponding. And I was like, and does she know that you took part in her father's assassination? He said, no, but I need to tell her face to face. And I was like at his door, and I said, okay. And when I went out, and I understand that this is a movie. This is a movie, and it's like for a director, this is like an enlightening moment that you understand that you hit a movie, like you found something that is bigger than you, bigger than that is big. And so I just wrote her. I didn't know her at all, but I got the book, and I started reading, and I read all her books, and I felt like I know her. Like I started like doing the research, and I started connecting to her character. And I just wrote on to her on Facebook. Hello, my name is Paz Schwartz. I'm a journalist, and I read your books. I want to interview you. And at first she was like, she didn't understand what I want. Because it was all through Facebook. And when we talked, she didn't understand what I like. It didn't go on. So I have had a very brave
Excuse me one
producer.
second. What year was this?
That
And
was
was Gacy already in correspondence with her?
they wrote to each other, but they didn't meet.
Right.
So I started like talking to her, but because of the distance and the time lapse, it didn't go smooth. So I have my producer. She told me, if you want to get this story, and it was, I live in Tel Aviv. If it was in Haifa, you would drive and knock on her door, right? So go to LA, knock on her door, and get the story. And that's what I did. I just flew to her, and I felt like I felt so connected to her because I read everything. But I was so curious to meet her. And when she opened the door when we met for the first time, it was like, because she felt me and I felt her, and it was like an immediate click, and she joined the journey. He joined the journey for this documentary.
Oh my God. So what year was that?
That was 2021, 2021. Yeah.
So it was sort of in sort of like the end of COVID, right?
Yeah, my grandmother died in COVID, and that's why we were just like the small family, and we managed to find those letters.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm going to ask you about the letters later, because I'm sure I'm sure that story is being written too.
yeah.
But so I just want to get the chronology. So when Noni wrote the book, They Call Me Infidel, she wrote it in English. And what year was that? I actually didn't have time to check. What year was that published? Do
I
you
don't
know?
know. I don't know. Before, yeah,
Right,
before.
before. And Gacy must have read it.
Yeah, Gacy told me that how he came across her story.
Okay, so tell us that, because
So that's
yeah.
Gacy is from Tiberia, okay?
Right, it's Tiberius. Yes,
Yeah,
there's that. There's the
and he
scene in your
has
movie where he says a lot of
yeah,
my family's under the ground in Tiberius.
yeah, and he has a friend that lives in LA,
Ah,
and he knows him like they're best friends. And one day he called him and he told him, Gacy, I just came across the woman named Noni Darwish, and she tells this, and she's the daughter of Mustafa Hafiz. Weren't you involved in her father's assassination? And Gacy is so clever and so mamzer. How do you say mamzer?
well,
Like
I think plucky maybe is what you want to say.
he's like
Bold, plucky.
bold, like bold, and he told his friend, can you give me her email? I want to write to her. And that's how it started. But he didn't have the courage to tell her by mail. And when I came across, it was like, it was like the right time to do it. And for me, it was like, it was crazy. All the time I felt that my grandmother is oh, siren.
Do you need
Siren.
to
Yeah,
disappear?
yeah, I need
Okay,
to
so come back when you can and I'll see if I can get the
Okay.
audience. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. So everyone, you see what just happened, right? Paz has to go to her safe room. This is the reality for Israelis today. I think many of you know that. So we're going to just wait till she comes back. For those of you who are listening, I see we have about 20 people. Please write in the chat now questions you may have so that I can look at them, okay? Because we would like to be able to include your questions. And I have many questions, but you please do that. I'm asking you. And if not, just be patient. We will edit out this gap when we post it. But this is the reality that anyone writing to us from Israel, anyone with whom we're corresponding now with Israel, that we have the possibility that there'll be a tzfira, and they have to go to the mamad. That is a siren, and they have to go to the mamad. So I'm gonna go off the video because you don't need to see my face right now. And I'm waiting for you, and just be patient. There you go. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Ega. Thank you.
Yeah. This
Crazy.
I'll just tell our listeners about 2 weeks ago, and maybe it's someone you know, Paz, we had a webinar, maybe it was 4 weeks ago, I can't remember, with Miriam Hirschlag, who is the Ops and Opinions editor of the Times of Israel. And she's a wonderful journalist also. It seems like, I have to tell you, I think there's so many fantastic female journalists in Israel, blows my mind. I listen to Yonit Levy all the time. So anyway, moving right along about my personal obsession with female journalists in Israel. But Miriam said to me beforehand, she said, listen, our webinar may get interrupted because there could be tzfira and there's no internet in the mamad, in the shelter. So I think that it's important that people realize this is your reality, and you have to hold a lot of contradictory realities in your head while making this kind of film and living day to day in Tel Aviv. So thank you, and don't apologize for a second. And let's just see if we can continue. So I think we were talking about Gezi having encountered Nonie's book because of his friend Isaac, right? Isaac Abadi in Tvelia, right? Who also was
one of his friends, not Isaac, but one of his friends that lives in LA, that he's from Siberia originally and lives in LA. He met Nonie, and he just called him and told him about her, and he just made the first contact. And when I came along, they were already in touch, but they never met before.
Right. So once you realized you had a story, right? You knew your protagonists, which it's very interesting. I don't think people realize that for journalists, you also amass a lot of information, and then there's a moment, a kind of click that's not always so rational, where you realize you have a story. Because you had your protagonist, you had Nonie and you had Gezi. So you got them both to agree to make the film, yeah?
Yeah. It's like I believe that the documentary is like it's like therapy. It's a little bit like therapy. So it's a connection between the director and his protagonist, and we all, it's a connection that leads towards a new revealing about inner revealing about one inside. And so Gazy had his journey and Noni had her journey, and I was just the I
You
was
were like
just
the
there.
therapist on the couch.
Yes,
You weren't on the couch. You were the therapist. You were
I
asking.
was just listening and observing and just listening, and people, and I was just listening and trying to understand the humanity in each of them, and not seeing while doing this film, I learned so much about the history of my country. I learned the first phase of Gaza. I never knew, like I knew, but I didn't know the history so much. I didn't know that it was that Egypt ruled Gaza,
Right.
and that we had this this moment where we could I believe that we could change history by maybe changing history by maybe doing peace with Nasser. I don't know, but I just learned the whole history. But what is what I but I learned it through their eyes, through people, through their like scars, through their pain, and I felt that they're so similar, that they have their pain is similar, and that is the I think the thing that is unique about the story, because you have to reflect on this so tragic conflict, but you see it through people, through their pain and their what they feel, and how they reflect about it, and that's
Right. So
why I fell in love with it.
yeah, no, it's very clear. Look, there's so you know, I mean, there's a lot to say. You know, you encountered both of them in their older years. I mean, Gizi is, I think, I don't know his age. I mean, I could probably figure it out if I looked at
He's
every, but
90 now. He's
he's
not 90 now.
90
So when I
and he's 90 and Noni is probably 70-ish, something like
no, she's like 78. She's like, yeah, she
okay, so
looks great, right?
these are really their twilight years. And
Yeah.
what I mean, I want to ask you some like sort of structural questions about how you made it, but I think I want to reflect on the fact that, you know, they both lived, they both had the schut, the merit to live rather long lives, and they should live for, you know, in good health. But memories, the repression of memories, we know this. At a certain point, you know, your super ego doesn't function with the same guard posts, and the memories flood back. And clearly for both of them, they kind of, you found two people for whom the floodgates of memory were just pushing up, and they were willing. It was, you know, if you had found them 50 years ago, I mean,
Wow, you're so right.
Nadav is very interesting because he's like, I have no regrets. I repressed it. I don't need to
Hmm.
go back there. I'm done. But
Yeah,
you found two people who were open to the
so
pain.
right. Like as a journalist, I deal every day with people that say no, 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 because I'm in the midst of the story,
Yeah.
and finding those people, and um, they have like this huge story, but they are so willing, and they're so I felt it like I was the, oh, this is, I love the old people, and I am gonna do just movie with them because they're like they're willing, and it's so right, like it's you have something to, it's not the conflict of just say just give me the story, it's just how you reflect on the story, and it's so you can do your work, you can go, you can travel with them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do have a question. I think other people who watching the film have the question. So look, we're with them on the journey. We see the revelations, you know, probably the most profound, and I'm a historian by training, the most profound moment is in terms of understanding, and then the tragedy of the understanding is that, at least we're told, and again, one would have to look at other sources, that Mustafa Hafez was against, or like he felt that infiltration into Israel from the Gaza, and people need to understand the Gaza border at that point is really the Egypt-Israel border. Like it's all Egypt-Israel. It's not like today, just the Philadelphia quarter. It's the Egypt-Israel border. And that he actually didn't want to send Fayyadin into Israel, but Nasser is for it. And he then had hoped to leave, and by then he's a target and he's assassinated. And Gezi has to come to terms with the fact that the person who he helped kill, I mean, you know, he's an adjunct to it. He didn't make the didn't make the book bomb, but he recruits the Bedouin who's going to take the. I mean, he's complicit.
He took part. Yeah,
he's complicit. He feels it.
yeah.
But had Nasser listened to Hafez, someone else would have been in that position, not Hafez. So you get this sense of the deep tragedy, at least the depiction that Hafez didn't want to continue these infiltrations. So that obviously has to be for the historians to look at those orders. You know, I'm not an Arabist, I can't do that. Nonetheless, we watch that unfolding, and then we watch their meeting and the emotion of it. So our viewers want to know how much of the filming was in real time, and how much did you say, Nonie, I need you to open the letter again on screen for me? You know, what was, and of course, look, documentarians and historians were all selective. You probably had massive amounts of footage. Can you give us a sense about the process? What was in real time, and what was, can you do this again, if you will? I mean, was the meeting on the Gaza border that we see towards the end, was that completely de novo?
Completely. Yeah, completely. It was like when Nonie came, we knew that, like, I knew that Nonie, she's supportive of Israel. Okay, so we know that she knows that someone killed her father, someone assassinated her father, and still she's supportive of Israel. So I knew that she wouldn't, like, it's not gonna shake her system because she already supported Israel after she knows Israel was assassinated her father. But she came to Israel, and we had like the interview, and then for like 3-4 days they met, and we had through some scene shots. Some of them didn't get into the movie, but we left this part to the last day. The last day would be on Gaza border, and that's where he's gonna tell her. And I was like, the tension was crazy because I didn't know how she would react, but I knew she wouldn't kill me. Like, you wouldn't, like, she wouldn't, she's okay with Israel, but how would she react? And we went to the border of Gaza, and you have to understand, for her, it was the first time just a second, I closed the door because my kid's here. Just a second.
This is a woman's life.
Yeah. So we came to the location, and she saw Gaza from the Israeli side for the first time. And when she saw Gaza, the last time she saw Gaza, it was such a small town, and now
right, she didn't see Gaza. She didn't see Gaza as it was.
So now they're sitting there.
Yeah.
And and they're old people. So he's starting to tell her his story. And he's telling it in a way she doesn't even understand what she's telling.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm just if like you had zooming out of this, I was like sitting below, and I was like, Nonie, he's telling you something. Listen. He's telling you that he was there. So, but she heard it for the first time. And a lot of people, a lot of time I've been asked, how did she react?
Right. Well,
And
people wanted to say,
how,
was there no anger? You know, this is a whole question. She's just, she doesn't show anger. So people can't believe that really.
yeah, I understand. Because actually, she was angry at first. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me? Like it's not fair, but it wasn't anger about what he did. Actually, she was very she was she told me, I understand, and I want to tell you I'm sorry for what my father did. And actually this meeting ended with a hug between them.
Mm.
And I was there. I was texting to the producer and to the Israeli public channel that support this movie, and I was like, she's hugging him. They're hugging. I felt like I'm just like this is I'm making peace here. This is such a moment. They're just hugging, and it was such a special moment for everyone to understand that something like that could happen, not with anger, but with reconcile and with
Reconciliation.
understanding the pain of each other, each side. And they hugged, they gave hands, and I was so, it made me filled with hope.
Yeah.
And now we're joking that maybe underneath was a tunnel that we didn't know of Hamas terrorists that was just digging after below them, because it was just on the border where,
Well,
like,
that's a very bitter joke, I would say. A
yeah, it's
very
a very
bitter.
bitter joke, but it was crazy, and this moment was such a hope, filled with hope for me. And
Yeah. Well, yes, I mean, look, the film is both hopeful and complex, right? Because you end, so first of all, the image, another film that we've shown at our festival is called Of Dogs and Men, which is about also documentary, sort of documentary with some docudrama of a young woman who returns to Neil Oz. And while they're filming her, you hear the bombs going off in Gaza. And Gaza today, if you were to go back to that landscape right now, if you go back to their meeting place, you wouldn't see any of those buildings. So
nothing.
anyone who knows the reality of what's gone on, both obviously the horrors of October 7th, but then the war, there's no landscape. You're not seeing that same landscape. So, again, for those who know, the complexity is there. There's hope, but there's the complexity of the reality today, which is, I don't know if hope is the word any of us would use right now.
No, there's no hope.
I mean, hope is mandatory, but it's very difficult. So
Hope
let me
is,
just, on that note, one of our very sensitive, watchers of the podcast, of this webinar, excuse me, says, it seems like these two people, Gacy and Nonie, are quite unusual people. And, you seem to be attracted in your own films. The person says that they saw your other film, Unexpected Love,
yeah.
which is about sexual, what we would call a sexual predator, and their victim, and then their reconciliation. So you seem to be drawn to kind of one-off stories. That's what the person is saying. So can you talk a little bit about your interest in
Wow.
the
First of all,
exceptions?
okay, so first of all, wow, for watching this film, who is the viewers that got this film? Because I don't know how you can can watch it.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
person, I hope she doesn't mind
Okay.
telling, her name is Elaine Guterman. She's
Okay.
just someone who's on, and
Okay. So thank you,
Elaine,
Elaine.
I am now telling your name. I hope that's okay, but if you want to
Okay.
write to me, wait, I'm telling
Okay.
Elaine, if Elaine wants to write to me at my Rutgers address, I will be happy to connect you with Paz, if that's all right.
For
But
sure.
the point of the point of the question is that you, Paz, are drawn to, or at least in the films you've made, to what we would call one-offs or exceptions.
Yeah.
Can you reflect on that a little bit? Noni and
Yeah.
Gacy are not typical,
Yeah.
not typical Israelis and not typical either Egyptians or Palestinians. So yeah.
First of all, thank you for this question, because this is exactly the stories I'm drawn to, but because I think I'm a journalist. I cover war and I cover tragedies all like for 20 years. And I feel like just to survive what I believe in, just that there is a lot of tragedies, and the world is not a safe place. But one person can change his destiny just by thinking out of the box, by 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 controlling his faith, by doing something else. And I this is what I believe in. I believe that people have the courage, like have the strength to come to change their destinies. And I'm like searching for those stories. And when I find them, this is like um this is like for me, this is like the only chance to understand that there can be a good ending after all. There could be a good ending. And it could happen. It could happen if this woman sat on this border, the daughter of the man who we considered our worst terrorist, and the man who was involved in her father killing. If they could see eye to eye, they can hold hands. It could go like it could be a good ending. And if this daughter, if this woman that of my last movie, that all the circumstance in her life was that she would get a good future. She made a difference, and she reached out to the man that was supposed to be her attacker, or like people can change their destinies. That what I believe in, and I am searching for those unique stories, and I'm finding them. And I can find them. They are there. Out
You know,
after.
and in my craft, we call this individual agency, right? That's what historians believe all people have. They have agency. We make choices every day, all of us. And there are all kinds of choices that people make. I mean, look, there is someone who could make a different film using the same protagonist of
For
sorts,
sure.
which is the person whose father or mother or brother or sister was assassinated, and the Israeli who was a victim of terror, and their individual agency would be never to meet the other side. So, you made a choice, given who you are, to make this film. But it is a story less told. I think that's fair to say. It's a story less told.
After October 7th, on October 5th, we won with the movie on Haifa Festival, the best documentary. So I was on October 5th, I got the prize, and I told the jury, thank you for selecting us. And if this meeting could happen on the border of Gaza, everything can happen. 2 days after October 7th.
2 days after October 7th happened, yeah.
Yeah, 2 days after October 7th happened, and I was like shocked. And we have a good friends of mine that his daughter was kidnapped and his son was murdered. He's 16 years old. And I was like, for 2 weeks, I didn't do anything. I didn't work. I didn't go out of my house. And I went after, just I called one of my journalist friend, and he told me, I told him, what can we do? Like where I can't find myself. And you have to understand that I was in this peak of hope because of the movie.
Yeah.
And I was, so I really didn't find myself. So and my friend told me, Paz, go after a story. That's what you know how to just go to find the story, listen to people. That's what you know to do, what to do, like go after it. So I went and I started looking out for Lior, the my son's son that was murdered. I looked for his friends from Be'eri.
Right.
And I started documenting them, and that's my last project, which was aired like 2 weeks ago. Well, it called okay. Why I'm telling you that? Because I started documenting those teenagers.
Yeah.
And then I understood, after the October 7th, all the areas was evacuated throughout from north to west. But the Shministim, the final grade, how do you call it? The final grade in high school,
Right. The graduating class
the graduating class
of Tichon,
of
Beit
Tichon, yeah,
Right.
they were spread it all around Israel.
Right.
And they wanted to finish high school together.
Yeah.
And they wrote a letter to the Ministry of Education. We want to form a boarding school just for us.
Yeah.
And they did it. And for me, it was the first step of hope. And I documented them through like 1 month after October 7th until they finished their prom and it was so filled with hope. And for me, there is always those stories. My nanny, my
No,
children.
we understand. Look, we've taken a lot of your time, and it's been an emotional little minute in a life of yours that's filled with this zigzag emotions all the time. We're very, very grateful.
Thank you
for the time that you took. We are really proud that we showed your film. I will let the participants know if they have some additional questions, I can forward them to you.
You can send
what
my
is
email.
Yeah. No, I'll be the interlocutor. I won't, you don't need to be bombarded. I'll be bombarded. Or I will accept. But what is the name? This was aired on Israeli television. What is the name?
On channel 13, the name is Mivchan Bagrut, you know?
Yeah, it means it's like the abitur, it's the bagrut, it's the culminating exam for
Yeah,
high school students.
we don't have an English name yet, but we're gonna do it.
No, but
and
we don't have no, but you know what? Americans don't understand what the bagrut is. Only Europeans do. It's a different system of education. You have a national exam if you were to culminate.
yeah,
It's
so
going to
it's
be
called מבחן
complicated.
בגרות, תיכון ה7 באוקטובר.
Right. Yeah. So
It's
culminating.
this, yeah.
Yeah, you know, there are a lot of American movies about teenagers finishing and have proms. You might want to go back and look at those movies, which, you know, it's always a moment of transition for kids, but this is all the more so. Where was the boarding school? Was it in Arad? Where did they?
En Gedi.
Oh, in Engedi. Anyway, well, I think many of us would love to see that.
I will send it to you.
Many of us have deep connections also to some hostage families. I'll let that go right now. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank our participants. I want to remind everyone that there's another talk back about another film, a drama, tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon, 12 o'clock. I will be talking to Don Seaman, who's a professor at Emory, about the film Running on Sand, which is a drama about an Eritrean refugee who is mistaken for a Nigerian soccer player. And in the film, although a drama, reveals tensions about race and refugee status in Israel. Also a great film, Running on Sand. So I hope I'll see some of you tomorrow. And Paz, good luck with everything you do.
Thank
And
you.
let us know if if the film is getting more airing. I'm curious if you have other people picking it up so that we can spread the news about the film.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay. Laila Tov to you. Good night to
Laila
good
tov.
afternoon to everyone on the East Coast.
Bye bye.
Bye.